almost completely frozen over.
The lake hasn't frozen like this, I feel like, for a really long time.
Dry, hot conditions are raising the wildfire risk in Texas.
And that is prime fuel for fire spreading.
Warming winters means it will be tougher for the Winter Olympics to find future host cities.
Let's look at how the climate has actually changed since the start of the games.
And why the return of El Nino could turn 2027 into a record-setting year.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. One of the coldest winters in a decade is taking a break in many parts of the country today. Much of the nation will see above freezing temperatures today. Most of the south from Texas to the Carolinas will be in the 70s. The Midwest will be in the 40s and the 50s. And the Mid-Atlantic to New England will be in the 30s to upper 40s, but there will be snow in northern New York and New England later on today. For people living in cities dealing with, a lot of ice, this is the first time they will see significant snow melt since a winter storm struck nearly 2.5 weeks ago. Meteorologist Veronica Johnson shows us the formula scientists use to determine how much snow will melt on any given day, using Washington, D.C. as an example.
It is called the degree day snowmelt formula. You're seeing it here, basically 32 degrees from the high temperature times this thing called K, which happens to be the snow melt index. And for as much ice as we have out there, that now is going to be more conservative, 0.1 versus 0.2. So when you look at where we're going to be tomorrow at 49 degrees, that from the 32 multiplied by 0.1, that's easy math for you. Basically, tomorrow we could see as much as 1.7 inches of snow melting with that high temperature of 49 degrees. The day after, Wednesday, could see 1.6 and then around an inch of snow for Thursday and Friday. That's how much melting we could see over the course of the next 4 days.
And ice covering parts of the Chesapeake Bay will be melting today, but icebreakers are still out on the water working to clear paths so people live on the bay can get back to work. Brad Bell has that story.
That is the icebreaker AV Sandusky bashing its way through 8-inch thick ice in the harbor at Rock Hall on Maryland's eastern shore. A truly welcome sight in this small town because the watermen who live here have been literally frozen in place for more than 2 weeks. Maryland Department of Natural Resources 80-foot boat was dispatched Monday to break them free. Waterman Danny White among those whose livelihood depends on being on the water.
Can't go to work, so that means we ain't making no money. And hopefully the wife has saved enough money to get us through.
White was among a group of watermen who watched nervously as the icebreaker battled for hours to get through thick ice on the bay and into Rock Hall. They say it hasn't been this bad in years. Captain Mike Simonson runs the Sandusky for the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. He says it is the thickest ice he's seen on the bay in 25 years. He says it's vital to keep waterways open, and not just for watermen.
Our main priority is definitely with keeping our first responders and giving them access. And I'm talking about all of our first responders, the Coast Guard, our state and our county and our city law enforcement vessels, along with all the fire boats that we have throughout the Upper Bay area. And when the Sandusky finishes up here in Rock Hall, they will be heading right back out where another group of watermen is waiting to be freed up.
And it's not just in the Mid-Atlantic where water has frozen over. Vermont's Lake Champlain is almost completely covered in ice, as Abigail Sachs reports from Burlington. That has not happened in nearly 7 years.
As a kid growing up in Vermont, there really was winter after winter of knowing that the lake froze over, and just it's gone much more infrequent since then.
The National Weather Service says that they actually like when it snows so that they can see where it's actually frozen and what parts are still open water, which right now is just a small little circle. So they're predicting that within the next few days, it should be completely closed.
Some of that thin ice that's over the broad waters is a little bit more transparent. And so when you're looking straight down at it from a satellite, it's hard to tell whether or not it's ice or if it's open water.
Tyler Danzig is a meteorologist for the National Weather Service and says they're predicting Tuesday will be the day that the ice completely closes. The last time this happened was 2019.
So it's been quite a while since we've had a full lake freeze.
They make this distinction through satellite and drone imagery, as well as reports from the Coast Guard. If you do decide to venture out, Danzig recommends wearing a life jacket, carrying ice picks, and testing the thickness as you go out.
We don't want people walking across the lake from Vermont to New York, especially across the broadwaters. You know, you don't know how thick that ice is going to be.
Closer to the shore is where the ice tends to be safer, which is where Morris and Horton stay.
This is just a way of busting out of the cabin fever and getting out and appreciating winter for what it is.
Well, one good thing about winter, ticks and mosquitoes seem to disappear, but do they die in the cold weather? Maybe so, but maybe not. Meteorologist Nick Russo explains how snow can work in favor of these bugs.
In the winter months, we often hear people say we need cold and snow to kill the ticks and mosquitoes, but it is not that simple. In fact, when you have a layer of snow on the ground like we do right now, that often acts like an insulating layer to keep those ticks and mosquitoes that are underneath the snow, the mosquito larvae in swamps, a little bit less cold. We have an Arctic air mass. If it were just dry and there were no snow on the ground, then yes, the cold may help to reduce the tick and mosquito larvae population. But when you have snow on the ground, that kind of keeps those ticks and mosquitoes a little bit less cold underneath the snow, and they may survive a little bit better heading into the spring.
And moving south to Texas, where dry, hot conditions are creating a risk for wildfires, officials are urging residents to take precautions, but say relief could be on the way. Farrah Walton is in Austin with more.
Don Dory with the Fredericksburg Fire and EMS Department says conditions are ripe for wildfires across central Texas.
Not only the low humidity, but then you have higher temperatures, which are drying out conditions here.
He says conditions are already dry.
We got some rain during the summer, which caused grass to grow, and so that grass has now frozen with the cold temperatures we've had in the last couple of weeks, and that is prime fuel for fires spreading.
Fire crews responded to multiple wildfires across central Texas Sunday, including a brush fire near the Gillespie-Blanco County line that grew to 175 acres. Separate fires in Johnson City and near Mustang Ridge were quickly contained with no injuries reported, according to officials. Another fire Monday burned nearly 40 acres near Fredericksburg, destroying one structure.
Any outdoor activities, especially during this time of the year, have the potential to start an ignition, and which could potentially cause a wildfire.
Crews are also responding to prescribed burns that got out of control, like this one in Burnett County. Laura Stevens with the Texas A&M Forest Service says wildfire risk will start to decrease over the next few days.
However, we are going to see some cold fronts towards the end of the week, which means wind is going to be in play as well.
Until then, she says prevention and early reporting are key.
Just kind of be mindful of the weather.
The Winter Olympics continue in northern Italy today. Most of the outdoor events have already concluded for the day, but when athletes compete tomorrow, they will be looking at highs in the low 50s in Milan and upper 20s to 30s in the mountains. And as you can see on the map on the right side of the screen, there is a chance of snow in the mountains. It will be another wet and windy day in Hawaii. Storms packing winds gusting 60 miles per hour blew across the islands over the weekend and into Monday, downing trees and churning up the Pacific. The Honolulu Fire Department says winds ripped roofs off 22 buildings, including an apartment complex. The power company says it turned off electricity to 10,000 customers on Maui. So downed wires don't ignite a wildfire. More than 100 people died in 2023 when a wind-whipped wildfire caused widespread damage. Now, new climate models suggest that El Nino is coming this summer and could trigger big changes in global weather. El Nino is a climate pattern noted for warmer than average water along the equator and Pacific Ocean. The El Nino that peaked around 2 years ago helped set global temperature records. A repeat could mean record global heat in 2027. El Nino, though, typically means a quieter hurricane season, but all bets are off, of course, if temperatures in the Atlantic are also above normal. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll look at how a warming climate can impact the future of the Winter Olympics, and we're going to help you better understand snow squalls.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. I'm tracking around of snow moving through the Northeast late today and into tonight. Here we are during the afternoon and evening hours. We're introducing a lot of snow here, or some snow, I should say, through parts of New England. It's moving out for Wednesday morning, and a good chunk of the Northeast will see developing sun with high temps in the low to mid 30s. As far as snowfall amounts go, our best chance for getting 3 to as much as a half a foot of snow will be through parts of northern New England.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region, looking mostly dry going through this week, but we will see a weak front go by. We'll bring some clouds, a few showers mainly in the mountains, and maybe some snow showers lingering behind into Wednesday afternoon. But temperatures will at least be on the way up a bit. We're talking about no more teens for highs. 30s across parts of the Mid-Atlantic from Baltimore and back to the west, maybe even a bit milder for Tuesday afternoon. Some slightly cooler air coming into the mountains on Wednesday.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Collins with a look at your southeast forecast. A mild day expected on Tuesday with temperatures running in the 60s across the Carolinas, the low to mid 70s along the northern Gulf Coast, and in the mid to upper 70s across most of central and south Florida. High pressure remains in control for Tuesday for most of the state of Florida. This leaves sunny and dry conditions in place with additional cloud cover across the rest of the southeast into Wednesday. Then the chance for rain returns across northern Alabama and Georgia heading into Wednesday morning.
The National Weather Desk celebrates 250 years of amazing America.
Snow squalls are common in the winter months, and they can happen quickly and turn dangerous just as fast. Meteorologist Zach Hatcher explains how and why.
They are kind of short-lived. They start out, it could be a fairly sunny day, everything seems to be calm, and then all of a sudden it gets cloudy, the wind starts picking up a little bit, and you have an intense burst of snow and wind, of course, so there could be a little bit of a wind gust going on with that. And then also it can sometimes lead to whiteout conditions whenever the snow is coming down really hard and accumulating on the road and you're dealing with a whiteout. That's a very tough thing to deal with, especially while driving. So you're dealing with rapidly deteriorating road conditions. It can take just minutes for that snow to start accumulating on the road, becoming very icy and not a good situation. And then the last thing is it's a short duration. So less than 2 hours, but really a snow squall happens in about 15 minutes to an hour. That's when it's a real noticeable thing because it just comes in and drops in a lot of snow and then moves on out. That's usually associated with a strong cold front, but can be kind of a convective situation such as around the Great Lakes area.
Well, if you like these short weather lessons, you should be sure to check out us on social media. We post a ton of content just like this from our team of 200 meteorologists across the country. We also post all the latest weather headlines as well. To find us, just search the National Weather Desk wherever you get your social media. Well, the Winter Olympics have always depended on cold conditions, but that requirement is now becoming harder to meet. New research shows climate change is shrinking the list of cities that can reliably host these games. Meteorologist Emily Gracie spoke to a scientist whose work maps where future Winter Olympics may still be possible in a warming world.
Vancouver had a bit of struggles when El Nino showed up at the wrong time. So she was coming up next. So we said, well, hey, let's look at how the climate has actually changed since the start of the games, nearly 100 years ago at that time. And what does the future look like? Can all of these past 21 hosts reliably host the games under different climate change scenarios? And of those 21 hosts by mid-century, you were getting down to about 12 to 14. The results for the Paralympics, which are held in March, are just that much closer to the spring, are much worse. And so that was the work that caught the attention of the International Olympic Committee. And then they came back to us and said, hey, we've got 93 locations around the world where the games could potentially be hosted. And the good news coming out of that was we were up to about 45 to 55 potential hosts in mid-century instead of just the 12 or 14. So
what are the locations? Can you name off a couple?
One's in Japan, one's in Russia that has not hosted the games before, but could. And then there's 2 in France. And some of those are higher elevation too. And you can go even further higher elevation, but then you start getting into elevation sickness for athletes.
Oh my gosh.
It's a fine line. You get the snow.
Everest.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be holding the Olympics at elevate. I mean, even when you go to Denver, Colorado resorts, athletes have to go there and train in high elevation for a period of time to get used to that. All right. And then the other big thing that we looked at this go around was how do you solve for the Paralympics, because they're the ones that are much more at risk. So then we looked at, well, what if you move the Olympics and the Paralympics forward in time by about 3 weeks, so that the Olympics would start sort of mid-January instead of into February. That would allow the Paralympics to come up and start the last week of February and sort of finish up the first week of March. And that made a huge difference. It almost doubled the number of climate reliable locations by mid-century.
On this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar, Dr. Scott digs deeper into what warmer conditions mean for athletes' safety and whether the Olympic Committee's sustainability efforts are enough to keep the games going. You can hear the full conversation wherever you get your podcasts.
Nestled in the heart of Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains, the town of Bedford is surrounded by breathtaking scenery and carries a powerful legacy as the home of heroes who paid the ultimate sacrifice, the Bedford Boys.
Little Bedford, Virginia, in Southwest Virginia was a small little town.
Small town America, home to some of the world's greatest heroes, like the boys from Bedford, Virginia.
I don't know anything about Ryan, it's just a name. But if finding him so he can go home, if that earns me the right to get back to my wife, well then, that's my mission.
Enshrined by Hollywood in epic war films with star-studded cast and directors. But before the blockbusters came the true events and real-life soldiers that inspired it all.
In one American sector, fire from enemy pillboxes kept many of our men pinned against the shore cliffs. Our casualties were high.
June 6 of 1944, American troops joined Allied forces to launch a combined naval, air, and land assault on the beaches of Normandy, France. D-Day.
D-Day was the one event that everyone knew had to happen because it was the path to victory. There was no other way to win the war in Europe.
Hitler's fortress had been cracked. The great gamble had been won.
Marking the beginning of the end of World War II and the liberation of Europe from Nazi occupation. It was one of the most significant battles in our nation's history and the world's, but it came at a cost.
We know of 2,500 Americans who died on D-Day itself. 1,917 of our allies, so it's a very costly operation.
For the town of Bedford, Virginia, the loss was great.
Town itself, town of Bedford, was about 4,000 people, and yet it had the highest per capita losses of any community in the United States on D-Day itself.
The sons Bedford sent off to war were some of the first to land on Normandy's Omaha beach, completely exposed to enemy fire.
19 of them were killed, very likely in the first hour of the invasion. One man from Bedford and another company is also killed.
Their sacrifice allowed follow-on forces to continue their D-Day assault on Nazi troops.
So 20 men from this little small town lost their lives on this one day in this single battle.
In a town where everyone knows everyone, the Bedford, Virginia community was devastated and promised never to forget.
The actual first D-Day memorial anywhere in the country was right here in Bedford. outside of the county courthouse.
The lasting monument to D-Day welcomes thousands of visitors each year, honoring all who died and the courage and bravery of the soldiers from a little town, heroes on the world stage. Forever immortalized as the Bedford Boys. For Amazing America, I'm Taylor Murray with the National News Desk.
And as we head to break, we take in views over New York City.
Good morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Sarah Converse looking at warmer temperatures across the Midwest for this afternoon. In Columbus, we'll get up to 47. In Springfield, Illinois, 54. Lincoln, 52. There will be a cold front and a low pressure system sliding through parts of the Midwest. A slight chance for a shower. Otherwise, will bring us a slight dip in temperatures for tonight, with most areas sitting in the 20s.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're a little on the chilly side. If you're up in Amarillo, they're about 48. A little cool as you get to El Paso, into the 50s. Everybody else warm, 60s and 50s, all the way down and deep into South Texas. Upper level low brings rain back to West Texas, Central Texas, and portions of the north. We'll see a weak cold front come through the region. Won't bring much cold there, just a change in the winds. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
I'm George Waldenberger with your forecast for the western United States. Has been quiet with a few areas seeing rain and mountain snow. That will taper the mountain snow from Jackson Hole up toward the mountains of Montana. A little windy over Lake Havasu City as a storm system approaches. This will drop mountain snow over the Sierra Nevada mountains. We're also watching winds and a wildfire danger for eastern Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. That's the scene from out here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Moments of marveling at surfers in gnarly Santa Cruz waves turned scary when a boat zoomed into the shot and was capsized by rough water. Everyone on board was pulled to safety and none of the surfers were hurt. Across the country, these asparagus clouds resemble rolling waves. And here's a look when the sky resembles art, a fiery dawn under an elevated overcast deck in Myrtle Beach.
What is a clipper system? Meteorologist Teresa Carter explains.
A clipper system, or Alberta Clipper, is a fast-moving low-pressure winter storm that develops near, well, Alberta, Canada, and travels southeastward through the plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes region. They move quickly, often crossing the country in a few days. These systems bring quick, light, fluffy snow, usually 1 to 3 inches. Mountainous regions can see more, and they can greatly enhance lake effect snow, which can quickly pile up around the Great Lakes. They are characterized by a strong cold front trailing behind them, causing temperatures to drop sharply and creating dangerous wind chills.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great day, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.